It's Laura Eubanks of Design for Serenity with your succulent tip of the day. And the only negative about coming back from my trip up north was seeing my oh-so-neglected garden. As you all know, we had a big family reunion up at our property in Northern California, and I was gone for 5 weeks, almost 6 weeks, and we had a lot of heat here in San Diego and a lot of fires and a lot of smoke and a lot of ash. And where I did have someone come over and throw water on the garden a couple of times, it is for the most part just completely and utterly run amok. I mean, look at my poor gutters. Look at these. Now, these last time we checked in, they didn't look the greatest. But I'm going to have to really take a whip and a chair to these. I had hoped that these little string of pearls, if I anchored them with rocks, would root. They haven't yet. And I know that this is a plant that here in San Diego does best in the winter months. So I may have just missed my window. It may have been better to not attempted that until later in the year. The string of pearls. Oh, here's one that it still hasn't fallen. Gravity hasn't taken its toll. It's still sitting on under a rock, and you can see it just hasn't done a darn thing. I mean, it just looks gross. This one does not look as bad. This one is a rooted specimen that has been in this gutter from day one. But the ones I tried to cut out of the fountain and replant, ugh, no bueno. And this pink jasmine has completely run amok. I'm going to have to cut this back hard. This is a plant that's great. It's not a succulent, but if you want something that's going to cover very, very quickly, this is the plant for you. It does grow very quickly, so you can see that it's even kind of attached itself to the neighbor's light over there on their garage. It will bloom in February, late January, early February here, so now would be a really good time for me to cut it back pretty hard. Naturally, all my cactus look amazing because cactus, they haven't suffered a bit. Even Greg's little weird caudex has bloomed out all on its own, got some leaves on it. I'm thrilled with my millii too. I'm learning a lot. I've got this whale crest on this millii. This plant was actually in the garden and I moved it into a pot because I thought it was such a beautiful specimen. I also have this variegated millii that's been in a pot for, I don't know, a couple years now, and I'm really, really pleased with how millei's do in pots. I planted this little Euphorbia trigona right before I left on my trip. It looks amazing. This Bougainvillea underplant looks terrific. This gets a tremendous amount of shade and bright filtered light, so I didn't expect that these aeoniums would go dormant, and they didn't disappoint. Over here, my collectibles, they just need a little love. They're very stressed. They're very tired. I need to rework some top dressing and just, give them a little attention. My little propagates, probably wasn't the best time to start that right before I was going to leave for 5 or 6 weeks. They're hanging in there, but they're just as dry as a bone. So I need to get these in the shade and start misting them and keeping them moist. And probably one of the most annoying things that happens in my garden every late summer, early fall through the winter is gophers. Look at how they have absolutely annihilated all of my diamondia. They've covered it up. They've thrown dirt everywhere. But you'll notice that the succulents are no worse for wear, are they? I mean, they didn't bother that. If they eat the roots of the succulents, it is not a problem. All of this leaf litter is from this honeysuckle that covers my pergola, which I'm also going to give a thinning out because it's just getting too dense and too thick, and it also looks quite water stressed. The gophers are just everywhere. Look at them over here by my Victoria Region A. Just a big mound of dirt there. And of course the Bougainvillea dropped leaves everywhere. This morning before I started the video, I cut all of this off of this plant. This will be easy to whip back into shape. I'm not too worried about that. Basically, what I want the plant to do is kind of hug the wall. So any branches that start moving their way in a direction that I don't like growing straight out or heading over the wall, are going to get cut so that I can keep it tight. So I could probably show you an example over here. See these? This is old wood here, this brown stuff. But these little green suckers, this is new growth, and it's growing in a direction that I don't want it to grow in. So I'm going to cut it right at the point of origin. And if you get after the Bougainvillea when the shoots are green, they're not really that hard to cut, and it's really not that big of a deal. So once I cut out all of this green sucker growth, I'll be able to see if I need to make any additional cuts. Now it is about mid-October in San Diego, and we're probably in for another 2, maybe 3 weeks of heat. The petalanthus that was sitting over here against the fence line pouting for the last almost year is leafing out. It loves the warm weather. So if you have petalanthus and you're in a warm season and you're not seeing any leaves, throw some water on it and I guarantee you that it will leaf out. The Bougainvillea that fell over has reestablished all new branching, so we'll see how that goes, you know, over the next few months. This is going to continue to kind of decline, and we're going to see smaller and smaller leaves as the weather gets cooler and cooler. I might cut this back hard again in the winter. We'll just kind of see how everything else develops. Remember that a garden is always in flux. It's never done. It's got its seasons. Another thing too, right in here, this aloe Hercules that was such a cute little 5-gallon specimen about 5 years ago, I'm going to have to make some decisions about this pretty soon, because what I had was this really neat tapestry of plants that were hugging the side of the fountain, and now this thing has absolutely taken over the space, and this area is starting to look a little unintentional. I dread the day, but this will probably be necessary that I lift this out of here, find a new home for it, and then rework this area along the pond. We have, you know, yay, weeds. We've got weeds, quite a few, more gopher damage here. And then just, you know, look at the desiccation from the heat. This, you know, these plants, these little sedum Adolphis look terrible. But you know what? They're going to come out of it as soon as the weather cools down. I'm not too worried about it. These up here are all tight and closed up. The Fred Ives looks pretty magnificent. But yeah, for the most part, this is just going to require some patience. We need to wait for the weather to cool down in order to really achieve any success there. My stand of agavoides got too wet. That's one thing I've noticed about Echeveria agavoides is it is a little sensitive to water. You don't want to hit it too hard, especially in, you know, seasons when it's not really producing a lot. That's rot, and it looks lame. This was so full and beautiful, but I have great confidence that this is going to come back. This little South African falcata, once I cut off the dead flowers, you can see better how its leaves are really leathery and thin. This is from stress, from drought. As soon as this thing it cools down and I get a little water on it, these will perk right back up, no worries. And the Dudleya that I've had in my garden for over 10 years is extremely summer dormant. And see how the older leaves have curled over that precious, tender new growth in the center to protect it? That is nature taking care of its own. So where it doesn't look the greatest, I know that come winter, this is going to open up and be absolutely stunning once again. So you have to kind of figure out, you know, what can you tolerate? What are you willing to wait on? And for me, I can tolerate quite a bit. Some things I can't. I'm going to be pulling the weeds. I'm going to be cleaning up all of the leaves. I'm going to be getting rid of all the gopher dirt. Basically how I'm going to handle that is just to scoop up all of the dirt and pitch it and then reset the rocks. And this also is in the garden in a spot that gets quite a bit of protection from the sun, and it really looks pretty darn good. The Stephanotis, which also grows like crazy in the hotter weather, has run amok. So I'll be trimming some of it back. Doesn't it look kind of weedy and messy? Gonna handle that. Something that happened that I love, though, is how the Bougainvillea has grown up over the top of the pergola. I really like that, and I'm going to encourage that growth. My Mangave is still struggling. It will look like that, basically look like this when I left 5 weeks ago, and it still looks like this now, just won't die but isn't really living. So this is going to be fun to see how it does with the change of season. My wisteria is getting ready to drop all of its leaves, so I'm going to leave it alone. The succulent fountain, I had planted more permanent things in here, things that were tougher, like my ghosties that I got out of the grapefruit pot.
Which we have to go show them.
Oh yeah, Hannah says we have to show you that. The sedums, the aloes, this looks really, really good. The roses also, same as with the Bougainvillea, I need to cut back the suckers on my rose bushes, and after I get this all, you know, laced out and trimmed back, I might go ahead and fertilize, and there's a possibility that I might get a late season flush of bloom. The Tapestry that we did together back in March is looking a little tired. I did put some screening over my crested aeonium because I just, you know, I'm trying to help this out a little bit. It's looking so rough. It's very much alive, but it's also very, very stressed from the heat. So just by putting some old screen that the cats, look at that. Hello. Yeah, Greg had to replace the screens because the cats just destroyed them. So here's a good use for that screen, just to gently put it over the plant to give it a little protection from the sun. Everything that was growing underneath is doing spectacular. Once again, it got the shade. Also, while up north and taking some time off, I had more time to read through so many of your comments, of which there are hundreds every day. Thank you so much for that. And so many of you want to know, where do I get my gloves? Where do I get my kneeling pad? Where do I get my clippers? What's that stuff that I put on rocks to make it shiny? You know, all of these questions, all of these things. So I took the time to set up some affiliate links through Amazon. So if you, you check in the description of this video, you will see those links. And if you would like to purchase any of the products through my link, I get a little tiny piece of the action. And it's also a great resource for you to have access to the things that I use. So thank you very much for your support on that. I recommend planting graptosedums in grapefruit tree pots. I don't know what to say. I mean, this thing is insane. We have talked about this before, and I have cut and cut and cut and cut on this plant, and it doesn't seem to matter what time of the year it is or how much or how little I cut off of it. It just keeps on giving and giving and giving and giving. So if you can get your hands on some graptosedum ghosty, do it. This is the area where I'm going to be working on the master tapestry class closer to the first of the year. And the gutters, I don't know, I guess it was just maybe a month or two at the most before we left to go up to the ranch that we redid these gutters. And look at how beautiful they are. They have held up so spectacularly. I really don't see much of anything I need to do. I'm going to check for insects. It is mealybug season. Here's a little bit of mealybug, Hannah. Right here. See that white?
Your finger? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. So I do believe that there is a link to the Ortho product that I use to get rid of mealybug in the affiliates if you want to check that out. Oh yeah, and the coin plant. See, I talked to you, how can you tell if a plant is dying or if it's just thirsty or whatever? This plant is thirsty. Look at all of the veining in those leaves. Wrinkling. What that tells you is that the plant is currently using its resources, the water that it's holding in those leaves, to sustain its root system and to sustain life. So what that plant is telling me is, water me please, give me a drink. So I will be giving this a little bit of water. I'm so happy to be back, and we will be getting back to a regular schedule soon. Thank you all so much for your continued support through joining the channel and subscribing every month, and for buying the crap in the store. The merch has gone crazy. Thank you so much for supporting the channel in every way that you do. I love you guys. This has been Laura of Design for Serenity with your succulent tip of the day.